End of the week, man.
Another week.
Hope this beer tastes as good as can looks.
Adam, what the fuck is this?
What is it good?
That's strong as shit.
What's the percentage?
9 something.
Ooh.
That'll get you drunk.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He's trying to kill me here. I don't understand what's going on.
And welcome back to another episode of Stories from the Shed. My name is Adam, your host. And with me again this week is a man they say will eat that shitter like an apple fritter. Jake, how you doing?
I feel like you might have used that intro last week.
No way. We had another nasty one for you last week.
Oh, thanks. You're getting me in trouble again.
We're getting progressively worse with this as we go on.
And more progressive.
And more progressive. That's
Yay.
great. Jake, what's up, dude?
Pass.
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 We'll pass it over to our man Jason, who's back with us.
How you doing today?
What's up, dude? How you been?
Pretty good.
Thanks for taking a break from the Uber vehicle and coming back to the shed.
The Uber, yes.
Das Uber. So what's new with you, dude?
Nothing really. Just school year's wrapping up for the kids, so a lot more family time, I guess.
Yeah, that's cool.
You sound so excited.
It's thrilling.
Oh, it sounds it.
Thrilling.
It definitely sounds it.
Thrilling.
It would sound better if you pulled the mic a little bit closer.
Little bit closer.
There
Look
we
at
go.
that.
That's better.
That's a lot. That's
basically deep throat the mic.
That's what it feels like.
Right.
Wasn't that the intro for last week?
I don't remember.
That
I
was
think
the
it was
week
talking
before.
about maybe. I think it was something about talking directly into the tip.
That's right. Just the tip.
Just the tip.
Just once. Jake, what's up, dude? You don't want to talk about your week?
I don't want to talk about my week.
Yeah, mine sucked. I will just.
And this is why I don't want to talk about my week.
I'd rather suck a fart out of someone's ass than relive this week. I'll tell you what. This was an awful fucking week.
Okay, whose ass specifically are we talking about? Because I feel like there's different levels.
A clean one.
I don't know. Your lips do look pretty chapped.
We're not talking about my week. So what's going on tonight? We got some pretty strong double IPA.
Yeah, Adam's trying to kill me. It's called Big Cranky.
We're going to see if Jake's still awake come 12.
Sounds like a rough Friday night.
Yeah, for real.
We'll see if Jake's still awake 20 minutes into this one.
Shut up. Rude ass.
So I don't know what I think of this. I'm going to need to give it another big sip of the Big Cranky. That's like gasoline. I think you could. It's strong, dude.
No.
I mean, rubbing alcohol. You can clean some shit with that.
Brewed in Connecticut.
I could use this to take the road dust off my wheels.
You must have some kind of a car project. Save the rest of that shit for that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Where are the Twisted Teas?
I don't know. Did you buy any?
Nah, we'll drink these Big Crankies.
All right.
I don't know, dude. I got to give this one a 3 Scully finger. If I was looking to get hammered, though, this would definitely be a 5 because it would be a cheap way to get it done.
How's it compared to the PBRs?
It's not the taste is probably just as shitty, but with more of a punch.
Fair enough.
I'll give it a 3.5 because I like the bottle.
Yeah, right. That's
I
about
really
it.
do. It's nice and bright and orange, and
It
I
is
like bright
definitely
things.
nice.
It's definitely brighter than my future. So here we are.
And Jason is always rocking the Gatorade.
The Uber doesn't like the big crankies.
That's right.
No
Crankies in the Uber.
Nope.
So what do we got going on tonight? We got a really interesting story, something that's kind of come back into
the news as of late.
The news.
It was kind of funny because we were going to do this topic anyway, but we were going to push it off for a later date. But because it jumped back into the news, we kind of made a executive shed decision to just push it forward.
Yeah, and
it seems like it would be smarter to do it while it's more relevant.
Of course, and you know what? This is one that you, Jason, had said we got to do. I think 2 or 3 times. You were like, "This is pretty good, interesting story." So.
There's a lot to it. It's 25, 30 years now?
Something like that.
Yeah.
30 years of ongoing litigation and stories and denials and paroles and everything. So
or lack thereof.
Yeah.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah, really. So why don't you tell us what we're doing tonight?
Tonight we're doing a story of Pamela Smart.
Who was not so smart.
The common theme is that she was a teacher in New Hampshire, but she wasn't actually a teacher. She worked for the school.
What did she do? She worked in the office, right?
Yeah, media something.
That's right.
She worked for like 11 schools, but she was part of like the media group.
But she was mostly at the Winnicott School, I believe.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's in Derry, New Hampshire.
The win a what?
Winnicott.
Okay.
That's right.
I'll try to say that one 10 times fast.
Good luck.
Now,
yeah, right.
Now, Pamela Smart, she's not from New Hampshire originally. She was from the Coral Gables area of Florida. She was she was the second of 3 children. Her parents, her father was a pilot. This guy was flying all over the place. What did her mother do?
She worked part-time as a legal secretary, I believe. And Pamela was born in 1967.
Yes. And from what I understand, she was a really good student.
Yep, she was a good student. I believe she was a cheerleader. From all accounts, she was very much about her presentation, I guess you'd say.
Not only that, she had grades to back it up. She had an almost perfect 4.0. 3.85 was her GPA.
So not a dumb girl. Definitely
No,
somebody that's got
not
some
at all.
brains.
Not at all. She went to college at Florida State University and graduated with honors in communications. And she even did it early. She did it in a little more than 3 years, and I'm assuming that's a 4-year program.
I would assume.
Yeah, just to further the point, she's not stupid.
Yeah, and I think the reason why she got involved with the like communications and whatnot is she wanted to do something. I think she actually wanted to be like a news anchor, but she also was into radio. I think while she was in college, she had a 1 night a week radio show.
That's right.
Called Metal Madness, which she was known as the Maiden of Metal.
The Maiden of Metal. She would have been a hell of a podcaster.
I was
bet.
just thinking the same fucking thing.
She was all about like
Can you imagine
the rock groups at the time.
For sure.
Can you
Van Halen.
imagine if they gave her podcasting equipment in jail?
Oh, she would tear that shit up.
For sure.
Oh, for sure.
I'm going to petition that we start supplying podcasting equipment to prisoners.
That's right.
300 episodes of denial.
I know.
That would be the name of that one. Now, to go back to the music, they say she was a huge Van Halen fan.
Yeah, very huge.
She even named a dog that her then boyfriend Greg had given her, named it Halen.
Yep, and I think she had a vanity plate that said Halen as well for
That's
a while.
correct. I had read that as well.
Sounds a little bit obsessive.
Yeah, but you know what? That's pretty common for young.
Even now, I mean, a lot of people
person.
have vanity plates on, something that they're interested in.
I saw the greatest vanity plate this week. I was driving to work one day, and there was a red Subaru Legacy with the vanity plate, no bueno.
No bueno.
Yeah, so during this time, around this time, she actually meets Gregory Smart at a New Year's Eve party in 1986.
And they're still students. Or she is.
Right, she is, yep.
Because from what I understand, Greg is not much of a student. He was one that wasn't big into the academics, kind of one that just wanted to get going working.
Yeah, and he had the heavy metal look to him, I guess you'd say. He had the long hair and kind of grungy and whatnot. So she was very interested in him for that reason.
And the comfortable tight jeans.
Yeah, yes.
Oh, I love
very
those.
Comfortable, yes. Snug. Ball breathers.
Yeah. More like ball breakers.
So, they formed a relationship pretty quickly in February of 1987, and they actually got married just 2 years later. So,
Oh, wow.
yeah, it was a very quick developing relationship, especially, I'd say, for that time.
Especially in college.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. But she definitely seemed like somebody up until this point hasn't made too many mistakes, so this kind of makes sense. And I believe this guy was a pretty stand-up guy. There was a lot of people in that community of New Hampshire that knew him, that liked him.
Mm-hmm. Were they in Florida when they met?
You know what? That's a good question. I was looking that up earlier. I know they lived in Florida together for a while.
Right.
Yeah, I think she had moved down there, and Greg followed her.
And Greg followed her,
yeah.
Right, and then she took a job as the media coordinator at the Winnicott High School, which was actually in Hampton, New Hampshire.
Yeah, he had started working in the same field as his dad. I guess he was working in insurance, and he decided at that point to cut his hair and grow up, basically be a man, take a real job, quote unquote.
Right.
Go sell insurance.
When are we gonna do that?
I'm drinking beer, trying to just enjoy myself right now. Don't look at me like
A couple
I'm trying
more
to be
big
serious.
crankies before we get life
Couple
together.
more. Yeah, right. That's
I'm
true.
not drunk enough to have a serious discussion.
So he made some changes, and she was excelling too, because as a 22-year-old, I don't know how it was in the 80s, but I know nowadays it would be very hard for a 22-year-old to land a job like this, I think. But she had kind of an important job working for a series of schools, like we stated earlier.
I think it was like 11 from what I heard.
Yeah, she was doing media coordination, putting together videos. She was involved in a program called Project Self-Esteem, and this was a local drug awareness program at the school.
Right.
And this is where she met Billy Flynn.
So this is probably a side gig from her media coordinator job.
I would imagine.
Yeah.
Something like that.
I mean, a lot of teachers, teach history during the day, and then they have after-school program for different things.
That's kind of how I took that.
Right.
Now, who is Billy Flynn?
Billy Flynn, they were both volunteers. Billy Flynn and Elizabeth, I want to say Elizabeth Smart for some reason.
I don't know why
Pamela
I do too.
Smart.
Pamela.
They were both volunteers at this in this program, and they had just become friends because they shared an interest in heavy metal music. And at the same time, Pamela had also met Cecilia Pierce, who was friends with Billy. Billy was a sophomore at the time, but he was always going out of his way to be helpful during the sessions, and he tried to visit Pam as much as he could in her office.
Sounds like he's developing a little bit of a crush.
Yeah, probably.
Time.
Well, I think it's important to say that, she, like we stated earlier, she's 22 years old, but at this time, Billy Flynn, is he 15 at this time, or
right? Yeah,
turning 15?
Yeah, yeah, 15. Right. Yeah, between 14 and 16, probably right around 15 during this time. And I guess there was a rumor going around that he did kind of have a little bit of a crush on Pamela, and she wasn't really reciprocal to it at the beginning. She was kind of like, oh yeah, that's cute, whatever, like I'm married.
Right.
Yeah,
I'm a grown ass woman.
Yeah, but look at it, it's a 15-year-old high school student, and you put yourself in his shoes, right?
Oh, I had tons of crushes on teachers when I was in high school.
Let's say you got this smoke show walking around all the time, and
I want to know what fucking school you guys went to where teachers were smoke shows.
Edward Little, dude. Fucking
yeah, but your school's falling apart.
The teachers aren't.
Yeah, well, I guess that's good, right?
Yeah. Well,
so it's one of those kind of things going on with Billy and Pamela. Kind of like he's got this thing for her, but she's kind of like, little boy, go fuck off or whatever,
Yeah.
And but I bet you there was a lot of other boys at that school that had a thing for her as well. Now, could you tell us a little bit about who Cecilia Pierce is?
Don't look at me.
Don't look at you.
Don't look at me.
Cecilia she was friends with Billy. She was also in the program, I believe. And from what I read, her and Pam kind of struck up a friendship as well. Got to the point where Billy, Cecilia, and Pam were hanging out like outside of school.
They
were all hanging out at her house like after school. I remember Cecilia would spend some nights over there.
Yeah.
And at some point, Cecilia even became an intern to Pamela Smart.
Yep.
So, and there were other kids that were hanging out in this group as well.
Right.
Some other friends of Billy Flynn. We got J.R. Latomy.
Mm-hmm. The Randall dude.
Yes, we got Randall that was hanging out.
Scroll. Oh, that's really helpful.
I'm sorry, Patrick Randall. We got and Fowler. What was Fowler's first name?
Was it Ray?
Ray Fowler.
Yeah.
Raymond Fowler. And a lot of other ones that are not mentioned so much in this in this story because these are some of the people. But they were all young guys that were hanging out with an older.
There ends up being a list of people that we don't have all the names on, but later on in this story.
It's right, and we'll kind of get into that as we go. But
right.
So what's going on? You got Pam Smart. She's young. She's married. Has a husband. He's selling insurance. Got a nice new haircut and all that. Not really what she's looking for.
Nice new mark.
Yeah, well, she liked the hard rocker look, and this guy becomes a professional.
They'd been married for what? Maybe I think it was 6 to 8 months during this time.
Yeah, and then they immediately started having problems.
They started having problems around the 7-month mark, and from what I had read, Gregg actually had a night where he had went out and got really drunk, and he didn't come home. Mm-hmm. And she kind of questioned him about it, and he was like, yeah, I was really drunk, and I crashed at a buddy's house. And then a short time later, he actually confessed that he had a one-night stand with somebody during that time.
Damn.
Which is unfortunate because, they have they're a young couple with a young relationship, and they have a condo. It seems like he's 24, she's 22, but it seems like they're really, kicking ass at life at an early age. You know what I mean? Good jobs, living in a condo, I can't even get my shit together, and I'm 10 years older than them.
Right.
What do you mean?
Well, you know what I mean? They're living it up.
You wouldn't want a condo.
I don't want neighbors.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why we live in Maine. At least the part we live in.
Yeah. But this would become pretty crucial to the overall story because it's at this point where she finds out that Gregg had the affair that she feels betrayed and starts kind of realizing that Billy is very listening and very attentive to her, and she starts to be a little more appealed by Billy during this time.
Right. And so she kind of turns it from not being very interested to
fuck my husband, I'm going to get back at him.
And so what ends up happening is they have like a little thing going on, and I believe it was Billy was at their house. I don't know whose house they were at.
They were at Billy's house.
They were at Billy's house, and Cecilia was there.
Yeah, having a little tiny party.
And they went to, I believe, a Blockbuster Video, and they rented a bunch of movies. You guys remember those days? You used to go and like fucking rent movies.
What's a Blockbuster
I know,
for our
right?
younger listeners?
Yeah, well, we used to actually get in our car and drive to a place and go into a big room full of fucking movies.
Spend $5 to watch it for one night.
Yeah, and then if you don't bring it back, it was another $5.
So they went and they rented a stack of movies, and amongst those movies was it 9.5 Weeks?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah. And so they're watching that, and I'm not very familiar with the movie, but I guess it's a really awesome sex scene, from what I gather from this. And
prove it.
I know, right?
Prove it.
I gotta go to the Blockbuster and get this one.
Check our Facebook.
So from what I understand, they get to the point where they're watching the sex scene, and then she calls for Billy to go.
Yeah, she goes upstairs and she's like, "Oh, I need your help with something."
Yeah, and then where does that go?
What did she need help with, Jake?
It's a good question. Why don't you call her up in jail and ask her?
Is there sexual desires?
I think it was with her sexual desires, Jake, because what she
okay.
does is she has Billy sit on the bed.
See, I read signs just as well out of you as I do out of women, so...
So she's sitting on, Billy's sitting on the bed. She goes in the bathroom that's adjacent to the bed. And what does she come out in?
Like a sexy negligee.
Like a sexy negligee, Jake.
Hey, that's a big word.
Things are getting hot and heavy in the shed. I'm going to take my hoodie off here.
This is the second week in a row it gets hot and heavy in
Ooh,
here.
I can't take it anymore. And I'm not even getting paid for this. So she gets out of the bathroom. He's wearing a negligee. She's wearing a negligee. And they start to reenact the scene from that movie, from what I understand. They even paused to go get ice cubes from downstairs. So
To reenact that one scene.
that one part.
The one part.
From what I understand, I don't think she knew it at the time, but I'm pretty sure Billy was a virgin at this time, so
I would say
he could
so.
probably use the ice cubes a little bit.
Numb it, it's getting too hot. But this became a trend, and every time they would do this, they would have sex, and
I think during that first time, I think Cecilia actually came upstairs and was like, "Oh, are you decent?" And she walked in and saw Pam on top of him naked.
Yeah,
and she didn't really think anything of it. She was just like, "Oh,
wow, not shocked at all."
yeah, exactly,
right." And then, but every time they would have sex, right afterwards or during or whatever, she would say to him, "Oh, my husband, he's got to go. He can't be part of this.
Right, we can't be together because of my husband and
he's gonna take my dog and my house and all my shit."
furniture." Yeah,
Well, it almost would seem like she's grooming him for something,
right,
to see what his responses are going to be and such. Just by reading between the lines, that would be my assumption on that.
right.
So this kind of goes on for a while. At some point, a plan starts to form. Well, I guess we shouldn't even really get into that yet. What time are we running at here?
We're running at 17:45.
Maybe this is a good time for a quick beer break.
I'm cool with that.
All right, we'll be right back.
The story of Pamela and Gregg Smart is about puppy love and cold-blooded murder in what used to be quaint Derry, New Hampshire, just down the road from the poet Robert Frost's old farm. Sex with a 15-year-old set the stage. Today, Pamela Smart recounted her seduction of the confessed triggerman, Bill Flynn.
Well, I didn't set out to have an affair with him, but I did.
Props were suggested by the kinky video movie 9.5 Weeks.
You make love to him?
Yes.
Did you do the thing with the ice cubes?
No. I think he's having a problem remembering where reality began and the movie stopped.
All right. Glad to be back from that quick break, because this is an interesting story, and it's there's so many different angles. And now we're about to start on really the day of the event, right?
Right.
And this would be on May 1st of 1990. On this day, Pamela Smart returns back to her condo, and what does she find, Jason?
She finds Gregg murdered on the floor. At first, I'm sure she knew what happened, but at first, I guess she went to the neighbors and said he was like passed out on the floor or something like that.
It looked, and I believe it was right as you walk into the house. It was like, right through the what do they call a mud room or the entryway or whatever.
Yeah, like the entry hallway, whatever.
And he was just there, and she went knocking on everybody's door in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
And she felt like people were not responding fast enough, so she says.
Right.
And that's why she continued on from one door to the next to the next. She makes it back to her place. They take a look, and it actually looks like the house has been ransacked. It was all in disarray. Stuff was thrown everywhere.
Yeah, there was some stuff taken.
jewelry and whatnot.
What was
Right.
interesting, though, is Pam Smart had her better jewelry on that day.
From some people's reports, she was like decked out like a lot more than normal with jewelry. So
Yeah, I'm going to put this good stuff on.
Yeah.
Well, I was just saying, at this point. But
these rings hold 70 fingers, so these fingers hold 70 rings.
And at first, they thought it was some kind of a heart attack or something. Even when they brought him to the medical examiners or when the medical examiner picked him up rather, and started with kind of checking out what had happened, until they found a small bullet hole that was just behind his ear.
It's weird to me that I guess things were different then, but it's just weird to me that they didn't notice a bullet hole or excessive amount of blood coming from his head or whatever.
Well, you know what? I can actually touch on this because I'm a bit of a gun guy myself. This is on a 38 special. This is what cops used to use a long time ago. Very small handgun, has a very long bullet. It's very similar to the size of a .357, which has much more power. Mm-hmm. But anyways, this is a bullet that's not terribly powerful. So I could see where it would make a small little hole into a skull and not necessarily blow it to bits like the .357 size bullet would do.
So with a gun like that, would you expect an entry hole and an exit hole?
Maybe not, because it's not traveling at a high velocity compared to other types of ammunition.
Well, that's a good way to contain mess. Number one. Number two,
See, that was
they
my
might
thinking.
be cleaning it up too.
Right.
That was my thinking. Like, how did the cops not notice like half his head missing with blood everywhere?
And not to
Right.
sound crazy, it almost is like a perfect type of murder weapon, because this would be a revolver.
Mm-hmm. Well, it was debated at one point what they should use.
Yeah, I think they talked about a shotgun, and her exact words were that it would ruin her furniture.
And it's too messy. There was another thought that they were going to use a knife, but that was too brutal
and messy. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but up until this point, none of that's come out. They found him.
Right.
Now she is a widow. She is a grieving widow at this point in the story, and this goes on for not a whole lot of time.
Grieving widow with her $140,000 life insurance policy over her husband's head.
Well, this goes on for just a few days, Jason. Right? I think
22 years old.
How many days did this go
I
on?
think it was
3 or 4 days.
It's 3 or 4 days where the police were thinking, maybe this was a drug deal gone wrong or a robbery gone wrong or something like that.
But all the while, Pam Smart is acting kind of not so much like a grieving widow.
She was in the media like nonstop, and she actually, when they say things like this is a drug deal gone wrong, she would actually defend Gregg and be like, he never did drugs, he wasn't involved in drugs, anything. She's very much trying to stick up for Gregg's name.
And this is within the first few days of this. And also, Jake.
Well, right, but doesn't that sound like a grieving widow would do?
Yeah, but that part does, but the fact that she literally was in the media as often as she could be, and she never had the emotion you would expect from a grieving widow.
Yeah, Jake,
Okay.
one time she even invites a reporter to her place, and she says, "Oh, I got an idea." She goes over to her freezer, and she
Right.
takes out the top of their wedding
I
cake.
remember you telling, we watched this in the documentary.
Yeah, why don't we take a picture of me holding this? It kind of paints for that kind of picture that you're looking for.
Trying to set it up. I want the perfect Instagram shot.
She'd be the queen of selfies.
Oh my God, she'd be the queen of anything
Thank
social media
God she
today.
can't get her hands on that crap.
And thank God she doesn't even know what the fucking internet is. She'll never listen to us talk shit about her. Hi, Pam.
How lost would you be if you got out of jail, you went into jail 40 years ago and you came out today?
Someone hands you an iPhone. Here you go. The fuck is this?
Yeah.
But she's acting very weird, and the people that are involved in this are very young, and surprise, surprise, they're not able to keep a secret that long.
No.
What happens next, Jason?
Within the first few days, I don't remember exactly which one of them it was, but somebody had gone to the police saying that they heard a rumor that some of the associates of Pamela Smart may have been involved. So the police started looking into, who she hung out with and whatnot, asking her questions. And she listed off a bunch of names, but strangely enough, she actually didn't mention Billy Flynn's name.
That was when she made a list of names. They asked her specifically who had been to your house in the last month-ish or so.
Right.
And she made a list of about 10 names, and like you said, had omitted Billy Flynn's name from the list.
But upon talking to those 10 people...
And Cecilia's name.
That's correct.
But upon talking to those 10 people that she did list, they started mentioning Billy and Cecilia.
Because the truth is, she was probably with Billy and Cecilia more than anybody else.
Yeah. They said oftentimes when they went to her house, Gregg wasn't there either, so...
Well, Greg was probably out selling insurance policies.
I would imagine he was working quite a bit.
I would imagine he sold himself a policy magically at some point.
Oh, one would assume he did have a pretty good insurance policy over his head.
$140,000.
Quite a good chunk of change. And so that's something to also keep in mind as you listen to the story. Now, within a few days, things start coming together as far as this investigation go. Now, there's a man, I can't remember exactly his first name, but it's his last name's Mr. Loudemy.
Vance.
Vance Loudemy.
Yep.
Now, what happens with that?
Hey, Megan likes our photo. Hi, Megan. You know who you are.
Yeah, right.
Vance, I believe he actually goes down to the police station. I believe he has his gun with him or something like that.
That's correct. Now, I can't remember who exactly it was, but he was informed by, I think it was a high school student, that his gun might have been used in this murder.
Was it a friend of his son, maybe?
I believe so. And so what ends up happening is he goes to his gun case. Now, here's the thing. The old man's name is Vance. His son's name is J.R. So we got Vance Loudemy and his son J.R. Loudemy.
Right.
We're assuming to be junior. But so Vance goes to his gun case, checks his gun, and he notices this thing is squeaky clean.
Well, isn't that what you would want?
Well, typically, yes, but he had gone shooting previously in the week or in recent times. He didn't clean his weapon.
Very irresponsible gun owner.
Well, in this case, it kind of helped to make a break in the story because this did set him off because he's like, there's no gunpowder residue or anything in this gun. So he takes it to the police station and tells them that he believes that this could have been a murder weapon. Mm-hmm. Now, also, they're receiving tips that indicate that Cecilia Pierce, a good friend of Pamela Smart, also might have been aware of what was going on with the plan. So things are starting to come together.
Right, and I think that the police actually talked to Celia at that time, and she had agreed to wear a wire and record some conversations with Pamela in hopes that she would say something incriminating, which she did.
And that was pretty interesting,
did she?
Jake, wasn't it?
Oh, did she? Yeah, it did not go good for Pamela. There's actually recording of this. I'm sure we could find it online, where she basically incriminates herself, and Cecilia goes in, starts telling her, I'm getting talked to by police. I'm having all these people come at me. And Pamela basically looks at her and says, well, listen, if you would tell everybody the truth, we're all fucked. We're all going to jail. Every single one of us. Do you really want that?
And it was kind of crazy because the audio wasn't very, very good to hear. From what I understand, they had everything set up, and the beginning of the recording sounds fairly audible. Mm-hmm. Something goes wrong as they're recording the story.
Yeah, I think whatever thing they were using dies, like the battery dies or something.
So it's kind of choppy.
One of us forgot to plug my phone in at night. Whoops.
So if we do stick that in this podcast, crank the volume up when you get to that.
No, don't do that. Just try very, very, very hard to listen.
To listen to it, it's very hard to hear.
Yeah, they actually had to take it to at the time it was a lot more rare than now, but they had to take it to a forensic specialist that specialized in audio so he could remove all the background noise. And he actually said that he had to listen to some of the words about 5 times before he could actually be confident that that's what was said. Mm-hmm. So this is pretty common, especially with old wires. I mean, they're not really on you. If you move the right way, your clothes might cover the speaker more and stuff like that.
And this will actually later become a point of contention in her trial too, because they had it transcribed, and because it's so inaudible, the person who transcribed it wasn't 100% confident in it, and neither was at least the defense anyway.
Yeah, a lot of the quotes that you see on the board during the trial will have brackets that says inaudible, 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 and then there'll be 3 words that they got, and then inaudible, inaudible, inaudible. So they were literally just piecing it together.
Now, as this is going on, the boys that are involved supposedly in this are in jail, right?
Yeah, they're in jail getting talked to.
Together. By the way. Odd note, why would you keep conspiring criminals supposedly or allegedly in the same cell or at least nearby?
Right.
Seems kind of odd.
Now, at this point, are they telling the story out?
I think they crack pretty quickly.
They do, from what I understand.
Or are they conspiring against her?
And what exactly is the story, Jason? What are they saying it had happened?
They're saying that Pamela had basically over time put it in Billy's head that if they were to have any future together, sleeping together, whatnot, any relationship in the future, that her husband was going to have to go and divorce wasn't an option. So she devised the plan where these 3 teenagers would stage a break-in, a robbery or whatever, and actually kill her husband.
From what I understand, she even drove them there because one of the kids was supposed to get a vehicle from his grandmother, and that fell through. So she's like, "Shit, I'll give you guys a lift to the, to the house to do this." And she even told them, "Look, be careful, don't fucking ruin my furniture, and get the dog downstairs where it's not going to be frightened.
Right.
You
Yeah,
can't frighten Halen with all this."
Right, put the dog in the kennel.
And that's the story pretty much that those guys have always stuck with.
Right, and they also, from what I had seen, Billy and I think it was Raymond, but I'm not sure. They had actually gone to the house previously to carry out the murder, and I guess they chickened out.
Yeah, I mean, that's really a crazy thing to do. Now, as this is happening, they're talking to the police, and they're saying who had what role. And from what I understand, it was Billy that had shot him in the back of the ear.
Right.
No, but one of the boys, Raymond had held him down, right?
Held him down with a knife, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So this guy's in his entryway of his home. He's on the ground.
Just getting home from work.
He's got a knife to his throat and a gun to his head.
What a great way to come home.
And the 2 other boys that are involved, they're sitting in the getaway vehicle, so to speak,
Right, and
kind of waiting to drive off.
And Greg thinks that this is just a robbery, and he's fully cooperative. He's like, take everything you want. I don't care. Just
don't
take it
kill
and
me.
go. And
Right.
but that was just staged to begin with. So
At
See, and
that time, though, everything must have froze.
Well, not only that, it's alleged that Billy had said, I think he had even admitted this in court, that when he shot Greg finally, he said, "God forgive me" or "God help me."
right,
Something.
yeah, he
something
said, "God
along those
forgive me."
lines.
Yeah,
He had instant remorse for what he had done.
Oh yeah, and it's pretty evident in his court testimony too.
It must have been one of those cases. In life, sometimes you're gonna do something, and you're just like, I just gotta fucking do this.
Why the fuck am I doing
You
this?
just take that leap over the cliff, so to
Yep.
speak. It had to have been one of those times when it's just like, gonna step off that cliff now.
Yeah.
And he pulled the trigger, and that changed everybody's life forever that was
Yeah.
involved in this one.
it's like within a split instant, he stopped thinking with his dick and started thinking with his brain, and kind of realized that.
The dick caught up. It was too late.
Exactly.
So, but during this time that all the boys are telling their story, Pam is still not necessarily. She's becoming a suspect, but she's not, arrested or anything like that. She's
Yet.
She's still working, even.
She's still working, right? They actually, the day they decided to arrest her, I think they called the school that she was working at, and she answered the phone media coordination room, and then somebody just hung up.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm assuming that was probably detectives being like, "Okay, she's there.
Move. Quick, go,
Yeah.
go.
Because shortly after that happened, the detective comes into her office and says, "I got great news, Pam.
I have good news and I have bad news."
Yeah, we found the killer. The bad news is you're under arrest."
Oh, what for? She says.
Yeah, right. Well, she has always maintained that same stance, but at that point, they took her in.
Yeah, they charged her with first-degree murder, told her to stand up, face the wall, and she was arraigned to the Derry District Court and jailed at the Rockingham County Jail.
And as she's sitting in jail, she's still maintaining the same story.
I didn't do anything.
I had nothing to do with it. I have no clue what's going on.
Now, she's never denied having the affair with Billy.
Right. Correct.
So, yeah, she's denying anything to do with the murder, and basically, I think, trying to put it off that, they did this on their own. They're just framing me, basically.
Was she ever convicted of anything, having sex with a 15-year-old? Did she get any kind of...
I think murder is a little bit worse.
Well,
than
no,
that.
but you know what? And when it comes to law, they're going to nail you on every charge.
Right.
But maybe they dropped it. Maybe they dismissed it.
Maybe.
Well, the thing is the 3 boys, as they started speaking, they were directly involved in this murder, but they actually reached a plea deal with prosecutors to have a life sentence with the possibility of parole, which is 25 to life with the possibility of parole. And
this is second degree.
Second-degree murder.
Second-degree murder.
But they have to testify against Pam.
They have to testify against Pam as part of the deal. So
Right.
This is critical because of this, they were eligible for parole, but whereas they're charging Pamela with first-degree murder, if she's convicted, there's no parole in New Hampshire for first-degree murder.
Right.
So she's guaranteed to spend life in prison unless her appeals overturn
Right.
any potential verdict.
And as this is going on, like Jake had brought up earlier, these guys are all sitting in jail together.
Right.
They're not in separate areas. They're together. So you gotta give the full story, like you were saying, Jake. They had plenty of time to conspire here.
They did, but let's be honest. If you have nothing to hide,
Then hide nothing.
then hide nothing.
Correct.
And if they all have the same story, which, if you think about it, they're all if everything is correct, they're all in the same place. They all experience the same life-changing thing. They're not going to have different stories
And you're going to have, I would assume, a very vivid memory of
something that
doing
traumatic.
something like that, right.
Being 16
yeah.
years old, I'm going to take a man's life.
Yeah.
Like,
You're
no.
going to remember every small detail of that, I would think.
Yeah, I would think so.
So like you were saying, they agreed to the DA with the DA's plan.
Yeah, we'll snitch on her, basically.
We're gonna 2 for snitching on that. I wonder how that went in prison for those guys. But
Yeah. So they start her trial, and just a quick side note, this was the first televised trial in U.S. history, I believe, wasn't it?
yes,
Or one of the first?
Yeah, gavel to gavel. It was actually, I believe, a month or two before the Menendez trial.
Oh, okay. Whatever
Really?
that trial was about.
Oh, that was the 2 brothers.
Two brothers who
killed
killed
their
rich
parents. Yeah,
Oh, Jesus.
great story for the shed, man.
Well, write that down on the list.
Yeah, this was before OJ. This was before Casey Anthony. And so this was out there, Jake, like you're saying. So what happens to a trial when the media takes it and does the media thing to it?
Do I
you're-
really have to explain that to you, Adam?
Well, you know what? Because it
It
also
turns it into a shit show.
But
Everyone gets their opinion out there, like us, and everyone starts talking about it, and then it turns into guilt by media, basically.
I mean, it's not looking good for her anyways. But the
No.
thing is, if you look at other trials like this that were on TV, didn't look good for OJ, didn't look good for Casey Anthony, but they got off.
So what makes Pamela not, basically?
I don't know. What happened with the Pam Smart trial?
I think one of the biggest issues is that they, the defense, Pamela Smart's team, wanted to have this trial moved out of Derry, New Hampshire to a nearby county. The reason for that being with the media having this lead off every news station, everything nonstop, that's going to poison the jury pool, basically. I mean, if you know anything about the trial ahead of time, if you've read newspapers or watched news articles, you're basically ineligible for the jury. And this is a small town in New Hampshire.
Okay, before we get too far into speculation, we should go through the trial, but I do have a question. If they decided to move it, just let's say from whatever place they were doing it, and they moved it into the next county, how much harder is it for the news crews and all the media to just say, okay, we're going to drive 40 minutes away instead? You know what I mean?
From what I had seen with this,
And it's already a national story.
Yeah, right. It's
part of
everywhere.
Where are they going to put it?
From what I've seen, the reason for it, that they wanted to move it to Grafton, New Hampshire, which I believe is further east. But they wanted to do that because where they were in New Hampshire right now actually had access to most of the Boston news stations. So it was a much bigger media market.
Yeah, because they were living in the Seabrook, New Hampshire. Now that is
That's a shithole from what I hear.
That's what I hear too. But that's coastal New Hampshire. That is in the Boston metropolitan type
media
area.
market. So
Yeah.
So they were thinking maybe moving it to another county would be people who've seen it less in the news. You may have a better shot at a jury pool out of that area.
But things didn't really go that great, I guess, for Pamela Smart.
No, the trial was it was all, I'm not going to say it was one-sided, but there was more than enough evidence on top of just her admitting it. You got 4 or 5 crying teenagers that are like, this is what happened. We'll point you to all the evidence, and it did not go well for her, to say the least.
What I'm wondering is, what did she say? Because I didn't find any of this. What was she saying? Did she take the stand?
She did take the stand.
Yeah.
She did take the stand.
Yeah,
That's correct.
and you know why she took the stand for herself? Because if anyone's going to defend me, in her own words, if anyone's going to defend me, it should be me.
And how did that go?
It didn't. She got
a good idea to testify.
annihilated by the prosecutor. The prosecutor in this case, I forget his name, but he was a monster.
He was great.
He was a monster.
He destroyed her because her story sucked.
Yeah, it really did. It was all like I think I had discussed. I think I had said this earlier. Everything that she said on its face was correct, but once you started unpacking the first layer, you're like, oh well, there's a little thing that you forgot. Oh, now you're in a second layer. Oh, there's like 3 more things you forgot. Oh, here's this.
Everything was tied to her. And
Exactly.
so what ended up happening with this is that, like we said, these guys, they got their second-degree charges. They ended up getting that, rather, with their chances of parole. Now, Pamela Smart, she ends up getting convicted.
Right.
And she's got first-degree murder charges in New Hampshire without the chance of parole. And so that means she's in throw away the key.
Yeah, they actually basically all of the boys obviously testified as part of their plea deal, and they all actually, to me, showed, at least Billy showed genuine remorse for us. He was crying on the stand.
Yeah, could barely contain himself. He had bags under his eyes like he hadn't slept in 2 weeks.
Right.
You know what made me laugh a little bit? And I know it's terrible, but I got a little dissensitivity from the shed here. One of them was saying that she was going to give them $500.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
$500 each.
So listen to this. Remember I was talking about that $140,000 life insurance policy? Here, go murder my husband. I'll give you guys $500 a piece.
Right.
Here's
you make off with
Nintendo.
you walk off with $138,005. You know what I mean? Like,
Get one good keg party out of it.
yeah, exactly.
Now, if she would have pulled this off, if they would have pulled it off, would she have run away with Billy?
That is literally the cheapest murder for hire I've ever heard of.
Right. But you know what I mean?
Where can I hire people
That's
like
what
this?
Billy thought. We're going to get rid of Greg, and Pam and I are going to take off.
I don't think. Yeah, that is what Billy thought, and I'm not sure if Pamela ever said. Actually, she claims that wouldn't happen because she claims that she had nothing to do with this to begin with. So.
Yeah, right. So she's in prison. These guys, their paroles have all come up, and they're out now.
Right. So Billy and Raymond, I believe, got 25 to life, and the two that waited in the car, I think they only had like 15 to 25 or something like that.
That's
maybe.
correct.
Yeah.
And so they started getting out in the early 2000s.
Yeah, they all came up for parole one by one. The first one was Raymond Fowler, who was in the car. He was paroled in 2003. Vance Jr., whose dad had the gun, and he also waited in the car. He was paroled in 2005.
If anybody didn't do anything, it's really Fowler. It's crazy how much time he got.
Right.
And then, of course, Patrick and Billy got out in 2015, and we still have Pamela in prison. But this does still sparked a lot of debate over the years, and there's still a lot to talk about. And here's one thing I want to bring up, right? This is kind of an interesting spin on this. You got a 22-year-old woman working in a school. She's hanging out with some high school kids. She's sleeping with one of them. For some reason, they don't seem to make a big deal about that as much as if it was, say, a 22-year-old male working at a school,
absolutely.
hanging out with high school students and sleeping with one of them, a 15-year-old.
Here we go. Adam's coming out as an MRA right here on the show.
No. But I'm just saying.
It's a badge of honor for him.
Right. But it's just funny how society looks at this kind of thing.
You just wish the teacher had touched you in high school.
I do. You're right.
But no. Check this out. So they look at that as like not such a big deal here. So for those people like her, for instance, she like you said earlier, she always says, "I never killed anyone." Blah blah blah. Right?
It's true on its face, is it not?
But she used her sex appeal to convince. It is true on its face, but she does use her sex appeal to get this guy to do it. Now imagine if it was flipped the other way, you would have heard more about the sexual aspect of it.
She basically went up to this kid and was like, if you still want my box, you're gonna put my husband in one.
Yes.
I have been waiting like 25 minutes to use that joke. That is so exciting. Thank you.
And she said it was going to stop. No more poontang for you at some point.
But here's $500.
But here's $500. You get a PlayStation.
And we'll post pictures on Facebook, but if you see the pictures of Billy, you'll realize if he's not getting it from her, he's not going to be getting it from anywhere because he is.
You are 100% correct.
He's
he looks like Michael J. Fox right before Teen Wolf.
Yes.
A little bit.
Looks like Michael J. Fox's autograph.
Can we continue this and you can bring up a picture of Billy Flynn for me so I can see this dude?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. He kind of looks like that one kid that they forgot to cast in The Breakfast Club.
He does, actually.
Honestly, he looks like the kid that would sit in the back of the library, like behind the bookshelves, and would read quietly to himself.
Yeah, well, he's actually the one who was banging the teacher, so.
Yeah, right. Hey, you never trust the quiet ones.
But it's kind of interesting because a lot of people feel like Pam Smart should be given a second chance at life.
Right.
She was 22 years old when this all happened. These other people, the ones that actually did kill her husband, that actually pulled the trigger, that held him down, that drove the vehicle, that got the weapon, these people are all out living their lives now. Pam Smart is still in prison.
Right. Billy actually was eligible for parole in 2015, and him and Patrick Randall both made parole and got released on the same day in 2015.
From what I understand, they were all model prisoners.
Right.
Yeah, one of them even got their college degree.
Right.
I hate Pam's argument that it's one of those things where it's true on its face. Her argument today is that all these guys are out of prison now and they're the ones that actually committed the crime, but here I am still stuck in prison. It's true on its face, but you fucking know what you did. You know what I mean?
I do agree with her, though. I mean, if they're all out and they were there for the crime, they did the crime. I mean, she is not by any means off the hook because she convinced them to do it.
Well,
But
it would just be
here's-
nice if she would admit.
I
That's
agree.
what I'm
That's
getting
what I
at,
think's
yeah.
holding her back.
These boys that were involved in this, they admitted it almost from the beginning.
Yeah, they took responsibility for their
They've
actions.
taken responsibility for it the entire time they were in prison. And in fact, I can't remember which one of them says, I feel like I need to make the most out of what's left of my life in honor of this guy that we did this to and his family, because I'm still alive and he's dead.
Right.
And Greg's family is actually, I guess you'd say, semi-forgiven all of the boys for their actions because of the fact that they took responsibility.
Right, and they've bettered themselves in prison.
Right. They do not, however, have the same feelings for Pamela.
No, and I think it comes down to just what I was saying, too. I think if Pamela would just come out and say, you know what, I had part in this, they probably could start to try to forgive her at least, you know?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, all they do is listen to her lies every time she comes on TV.
It's the
Right.
same story.
And it's like, and every story it's true on its face. So it's like, can you blame her? Yes and no. I don't know. To me, she comes off as psychopathic. She really does.
Here's my question to go back on what I was saying earlier. If this would have been a male working at the school, would so many people say, let's give this guy a second chance? This guy that was sleeping with this young female student and used her and this and that. Would people be looking at it the same way?
I'm not going to touch that one, but you can go right ahead and speculate.
It's just a question, though. What do you think, Jason? Would people be looking at it the same way if instead of Pam Smart, it was Patrick Smart?
I don't know. It is one of those things where it's a touchy subject for sure, but I feel like the murder is what people focus on most, which is probably for the better anyway. But you're right. Or if it was a man, that might be something that, instead of saying you can't release a murderer back into society, they'd say you can't release a rapist back into society.
Right.
But as we've seen in the news plenty of times, I mean, rapists don't do enough time for their crimes.
No,
man or woman.
The thing is, these 4 boys that were incarcerated now out, they're probably not a threat to their communities. I would say they're not a threat. I feel like they were young and dumb, and they let their emotions run high, and this is what happened. Is Pamela Smart a danger if she is released?
Yes.
Why?
Because she has literally zero remorse for what she took part in.
Could she manipulate someone else?
Oh my God, 100%. Yes.
I disagree. I don't think she'd be a danger at all. I mean, I think that I think she thought she was smarter than she was, and I think now she knows that she would definitely never get away with that again. But
awfully famous. They've made a few movies about her. There's quite a few documentaries.
Yeah, she is.
Just because she's got, I wouldn't say she's got like a cult following, but just because so many people know who she is, there's a lot of people who are fascinated by her case. You don't think that if she went up to one of these people who has been following her case for the last 30 years and started talking to them, that it wouldn't entrance them somehow?
Yeah, maybe.
I think it's very... Yes, I can.
Thank you.
I think it's very possible that given a certain circumstance, she could very easily manipulate someone else. And I really feel that way because when you watch her testimony and you watch how she goes about her conduct, like when you, Adam, had talked about her pulling out the top of her wedding cake and trying to get like the perfect picture to the media, that's psychopathic.
That
to
is
me.
definitely.
Keep
That
this
is
bitch away from
fucked
Facebook.
up.
Yeah.
You know what?
She is crazy. 100%.
If she was in your Facebook feed, right? Imagine all the stupid ass pictures she'd be sending if she was out nowadays. She should almost stay in prison for her threat to Facebook.
Yeah, I don't think that she would be a threat because I feel like she's been through a lot in prison. She's been raped. She's been beat up. She has like a faceplate in now.
I'm not saying she deserves it, but I'm also not saying that I feel bad.
I definitely don't feel bad either. My biggest issue that I agree with her on is that if the people who actually pulled the trigger and were there and holding a knife to his throat get a second chance, or at least even a shot at a second chance, I mean, she should maybe at least get a parole hearing.
What has she done with her time in prison, I wonder?
She's actually gotten 2 master's degrees.
Really?
Yeah, and the person who teaches her actually said she's one of the smartest students she's ever had in over 30 years as a professor.
That's incredible.
It's almost sad. I mean,
Such a waste.
These are 5 lives that just had potential that just got wasted away.
Well, I'd like to say 6 lives.
6 lives, yeah.
Really? I mean,
well, from what I had read about Patrick, the guy who had put the knife to his throat, I heard he might have ended up in jail anyway.
He's one of those.
He was on a bad path. He had beat his stepfather with a baseball bat, but they weren't allowed to use that as testimony because it happened when he was a minor. So,
actually, really, everything happened when these guys were minors.
Yeah.
Because these guys, we failed to mention this earlier, they were all tried as adults.
Right.
Okay, I have a question because I don't think there's a lot of this anymore. I don't feel like there's a lot of places that would take a criminal and put that like. There's not a lot of mental institutions, is what I'm getting at. At least maybe I could be wrong.
You're saying like a rehabilitation type place?
What if we took her and put her in a center for the remainder of her life rather than kept her in jail?
Well,
because and this obviously is just a really quick bring up, but watching her, the way she acted during the trial, in all of these follow-ups after she's been to jail, all these documentaries, and the one that we had watched earlier this week, she came off as psychopathic to me. And I'm reading like a list of 20 different things, and I could literally name off like 17 of these on the list where I'm like, she's been there. Mm-hmm. I really don't feel like we could bring her out in public. I would not be opposed to getting her out of jail to put her somewhere else, but putting her out in public, I still feel would be a very large danger.
I just have...
She's not a physical danger. Like, she's not going to come over and beat you up.
Right, no.
But
I feel like as far as like a threat, maybe not, but like out of the respect for Gregg Smart's family, I mean, they're never going to get Gregg back. So if it gives them any kind of closure to have her sit in jail, then okay. Like, but the other guys should too. And my biggest thing is that with them all being so young, I mean, to throw somebody in jail at 22 for life, she could sit in there for 60 years. And like, there's no saying that she couldn't have been rehabilitated at such a young age and actually become a productive member of society.
What made her do this? What made her do this?
bored, maybe?
Bored with her husband?
With her life. It's rain. Okay. It's raining outside.
Wow, that came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
I wonder if they can hear that.
You're bored with your life, Jake. You get a hobby. You don't kill your husband.
Well, tell that to fucking Pamela Smart, yo.
Maybe she
don't
was.
Tell me.
Maybe I don't. Why, Jason? What made this happen? What is the reason for this? Leave him.
Okay, well,
you don't want to be married to him. Leave him.
Okay, well, number one, he had cheated on her. Number two, he cut his hair and all this dumb stuff. And maybe they had issues before they got married too. There's not a lot of info on that, and it's not like it's anyone's worry anyway. I guess you know what I mean, especially in a 30-year-old case.
Yeah, you get a point there, but I mean,
clearly,
why kill when you could just divorce? And I know she's like, "Oh, a divorce doesn't look good." I believe she'd said stuff like that
because she didn't want to lose everything.
Yeah, she thought
he owned everything.
You're 22 years old. Start over.
That's not how people think when they're irrational.
Right. She was thinking, I have probably a pretty nominal paying job. I'm going to lose my dog, who apparently is like her life.
Yep.
I'm going to lose a house. So
it was named after her favorite band.
Right. She's going to lose her house because he's going to take it. And, she's going to have to find an apartment or another house that's more financial responsibility. And then she's not going to have any furniture or anything when she does. I mean, she's thinking of this as like a money aspect, I think, more than a relationship aspect. She's worried that if she divorces him, it's going to cost her $10,000 that she doesn't have, as opposed to just killing him, getting his life insurance money, and moving on.
Right. Paying off the condo, not having a worry.
My question for you guys, we'll start with you, Jake.
What's up?
Sentencing, okay? Was it appropriate for everybody involved? Was it?
For everybody, that's going to require a little more thought. I think for her, 100%. In my mind, I don't want her anywhere near the streets. I think she needs to. We've talked about this before. I think that there are some people that we should just study. Some serial killers or some criminals or something. We need to just study certain people. We need to study her because the level of denial that she is in and the mind games that she can play with herself to deny what she did are just, they're continuously mind-blowing to me. I found myself banging my head off the table when we were watching this in the shed the other night. I cannot fathom what is going through her head. I want her to be studied more than anything else. Her sentencing was 100% appropriate.
You almost feel like she convinced herself that she did nothing wrong.
She played over this perfect scenario in her head, and it just became fact.
To her, yeah.
To her, right.
Like she convinced herself.
That's why I want us to study her. The boys, I'm not really sure because they killed him.
Take into consideration their age.
Also understand that they were 15 and she was fucking one of them.
So a lot of people would say they all should have gotten something like 30 years with the chance of parole. They all should have gotten a second-degree murder charge.
I agree with Jake as far as the age thing. I mean, but here's the thing: if you're going to be charged as adults, you have to follow the adult rules as far as the trial. And the fact is, first-degree murder shows premeditation, and all of these people had premeditation with this. They literally had meetings talking about it.
Oh, absolutely.
They scoped out the place beforehand. Like, this was a premeditated first-degree murder on all counts. The only reason why they got off the way they did is because they testified.
They didn't really need those boys to testify to get Pam Smart a first-degree murder charge.
No, but they might have not known that at the time.
Or even one of them. Why do you need 4 people to all get a good plea deal? You only need the testimony of 1 or 2 people.
Billy's would have been perfect.
Maybe they wanted to build a super strong case against her.
Even Fowler and Vance Jr., they were in the car. They could have gotten off very low.
Well, they could have, yes, but they wouldn't have known who actually pulled the trigger, what happened once they were inside the house, whatever, because you said, they were waiting in the car.
Right.
It's true.
So if anything, they would want to bargain with at least one of the boys who was in the house to get a solid story.
Plus 4 against 1 is a full deck of cards.
Right.
It definitely is.
I think they were trying to build, at the time, the biggest case possible. And let's not forget, Pam was up their ass about stuff.
Right.
So, Jason, what's going on with Pam Smart right now?
That bitch in jail.
Yeah, not much is going on for Pam.
She's been trying, basically especially since Billy and Patrick got out, she's been trying to get her sentence commuted to 25 to life so she can get a parole hearing.
Oh, fucking boo-hoo, Pam Smart.
She just came out earlier this week, actually, and was again trying to petition the governor for a pardon or to be sentence commuted, and the executive committee voted 4-0 to deny her and let her.
That's going to be a big fat no from us, dog. Yeah. Sit the fuck down.
They cited in their explanation that basically her lack of remorse and taking responsibility for the crime is the reason why they won't consider anything at this time.
Because she's a psychopath.
Right. For 30 years, she's denied this with the same story, and it's like she's stuck to it. You can tell that she's convinced herself.
Absolutely.
That she has nothing to do with this.
Absolutely. And she had everything to do with it. Yeah. I'm going to find that clip and put it somewhere where it's her saying, if you blah, blah, blah.
It won't be hard. She said it many times.
Right, exactly.
You'll find all kinds of stuff online for her. You can find it for Pam Smart stuff on YouTube for days.
Yep.
I got to tell you, though, it's hard for me because I kind of see both sides of the story here. I can see where they either all should have gotten life sentences, or they should have all, the argument for that, or the argument for they should have all gotten 30-year sentences with the chance of parole.
The only reason I could say that the boys don't deserve life sentences is because they were so young at the time, and they were under her. I wouldn't say they were like she had possessed them, but they were under her wing. You know what I mean? She very clearly had an influence over at least Billy. But then again, you did kill someone. So I'm on the fence about their sentences.
When you were 15, did you know that killing somebody was very, very, very wrong?
Oh, 100%.
Right.
But I've also done some really dumb things for pussy when I was 15.
Could the power of the poontang have persuaded you?
Not me personally, but I can see why some people might be dumb enough to go that way, I guess.
I can too. I can see where Billy Flynn would have been like, oh man, I got this smoking hot hottie. She's just doing whatever I want.
The smoking hot hottie.
That's how he's.
You
he's
were
15
straight
years-
out of the 1970s.
Do you think
or
he was
something.
like the cool? Do you think he was like the coolest kid in school?
He wasn't, dude.
Well,
you
it
know
depends
he
on if
wasn't.
they knew he was fucking her.
Yeah, I guess. I mean,
That makes a big factor into that.
Well, didn't he
But-
play guitar?
he did.
He did.
Yeah, who didn't?
Oh, he was smashing everyone.
Didn't
Why
we,
was he worried about her?
Didn't we all play guitar when we were kids? Like, you know?
I could pluck a string.
right. You know, but you know, this made Billy's life at that time. You know, he was 15 years old. This is a big thing for him. He just was gonna do whatever the hell she said.
Boy, it's true.
You know, and so that's the thing. She manipulated. Why is Gregg Smart dead? Because she manipulated 4 kids into doing her dirty deed. She basically killed him.
We could have the free will argument and say that they did it on their own free will, but did they really? You know?
I wonder, you know, how it must have been.
Because, and the only reason I say that is because they scoped out the house.
Do you
a couple
think that there
times.
is even a 1% or 0.5% possibility that maybe she's telling the truth?
Well, and there you go. But you know what? They nailed down that murder weapon. They nailed it down.
But I mean, those boys could have done it, and it would be very convenient to just be like, well, "This is why."
Because her story is that these guys made up a bullshit story in jail.
Would Billy not have the thought, if I kill her husband, I'll be with her?
But why would she tell Cecilia, if you tell the truth, we're all going to jail?
How do you explain
Why
that?
would she say that?
She explains it in one of the documentaries that I saw. That,
Oh, she's playing some fucking backward ass 4D chess garbage shit.
Oh,
trying to
absolutely.
fucking put it, oh my
absolutely.
god.
But,
Absolutely.
but the way she explains that is that she was she thought that Cecilia knew more about the murder, so she was kind of using the mentality that, like, if I act like I know something about it, she'll tell me what she knows about it.
Right.
Is what she claims.
Yeah.
Which we all know is
Fuck
horse
you.
shit. But
Fuck you.
I mean, like I said, is there not motive for Billy to do it, whether she wanted him to or not? I mean, he's like, he knows, you know, all she would have had to say is, we can't be together because of my husband, and not even mention anything about him dying or anything. And Billy could have put 2 and 2 together and been like, well, if I get him out of the way, it's just me now.
Okay, a little bit of a side question, but do you think she took his virginity, and how much of a thing would that be for him at 15?
I agree. During trial, it came out that it was Billy's virginity, but she claims that she didn't know that at the time.
She may not have, and
Well,
that
she
that
found
may be
out within the
truthful.
first
She
30
asked
seconds,
him.
I'm sure.
She asked him. Oh, Billy.
Yeah.
Oh, Billy, is this your first time, Billy? Oh, yeah, she asked him.
Yeah,
She
said it just like that.
Because if she planned this, here's
Patted
the
him
thing.
on the head, the whole deal.
It's so premeditated to the point where she wasn't even interested in Billy until Gregg cheated on her. And then she said, oh, well, look at this stupid ass. He's willing to follow me around like a fucking lapdog.
I'm not trying to be too graphic, but I'm just going to say, I know when I lost my virginity, I would not have been able to act out an entire sex scene of a movie and make it through that.
But, well, nobody said he did.
I was done when she opened the door with her negligee.
But that just speaks to the power of that and how she was able to use, you know, sexuality to control not just him, but 3 other guys.
And this is why this is the other part of the reason why I think she's dangerous. Not physically dangerous, like I said, she's not going to come up and beat your ass. But she's very manipulative. It's not someone that you would want to associate with.
Right.
So here's my take on it, right? I can see both sides of the argument, but the fact is that these boys have taken ownership and responsibility for what they did. They were very young.
Right.
They're out now. Let's let them go on with their lives, right? Pam Smart
Just come out and admit what
has
you did.
been lying now for decades.
I love the rain.
She's been lying now for decades about this. Pam Smart shows no remorse. And for that reason, she deserves to stay in prison for the rest of her life.
Okay.
I agree. My question is with the Pam Smart thing, you know, if she truly is innocent, which let me tell you, she's guilty as hell. But if she
Yes.
truly is innocent, would you, as a Pam Smart, just tell them what the fuck they want to hear to get out of jail? I mean, she's been lying about it for 30 years and getting nowhere. If she really wants to get out of jail, would you, and it was you, would you say, yeah, fuck it, I told Billy to kill him and yada yada, and I feel terrible about it, and would you spin your lie?
But at this point, she doesn't have that option because she's got life without the chance of parole.
Well, she had the option before she exhausted all of her appeals.
That's true.
Okay, well, do you think... That's an interesting question because you've been lying for, at this point, you've been lying for 30 years. Now, if all of a sudden I just want to get out of jail, I'm just going to flip and say, yeah, I did it, you're right. And then just watching her past emotional responses to everything as it was unfolding, she's going to come off very cold and emotionless in that, too. She could not really show all that much
she's a psychopath,
emotion.
though. She could do it.
She's definitely a psychopath.
I don't know. I really don't know, because she didn't seem to have any emotion while it was happening or in the trial at all.
She had eyes like a shark.
Yeah, she was very, like, in her own fucking space.
Yeah.
I don't know if she could show emotion. And not only that, but because she's been lying for so long, people would immediately see through it.
Right, I agree. But I'm just asking, would you at least try that tactic if it was you? I mean, what does she have to lose?
Yeah, she's already lost her life.
If it were me, probably yeah. But just in her case, I don't think she will, because I think she thrives off the attention she gets now.
She still loves it.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, look at her. Every time the interviewer, right? She's in prison, right? The interviewer, perfect hair. Fucking curled nice.
Oh, yeah, it looks like she just got off her husband's Harley.
She's not doing that with some fucking makeshift jail type stuff. She's in some cushy, comfortable type of a setting.
Yeah, toilet paper rolls wrapped in her hair.
Yeah, she's doing something. She looks great every time they show her. For you know what I mean, for somebody that's sitting in jail.
Yeah.
I don't believe she's never seen the internet.
Or
Or a cell phone, for that matter.
She's seen some lazy ass COs texting their, she's seen a cell phone. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
I think that her whole strategy at trial was to look like the pretty young, hardworking white woman that basically, she could never do something like this. Like,
I agree.
Very interesting, but I think we pretty much exhausted the story.
I know I'm exhausted.
So I think we're all kind of in agreement that Pam Smart
stays in jail
until she decides to be an honest individual, if she can find it in her heart to be an honest individual.
She's still only 52.
Yeah.
You will sit in the corner, and you can come out when you are ready to apologize.
That's right, Pam Smart. The shed has grounded your ass for life.
That's right.
And
no more TV. No more cell phone for you.
That's right.
You think you're going to go out and see your friends? Poof. You don't even have any more friends.
It's done for you. That's it.
I've banned your friends.
And now on to the social media. You can find us on Facebook at Stories from the Shed. Like us. Tell your friends. Instagram, Stories from the Shed. YouTube, podcast. YouTube, Stories from the Shed podcast. Twitter, Stories from Shed. Tell your Russian friends.
That's right.
Hit
we
us
have
up.
Not one download in Russia yet.
Russia, come on.
I know.
They're not allowed to.
That's true.
Gmail. We love it when you send us our Gmail. sftspodcast at gmail.com. Hit us up there.
Should we give them the Skype?
Hit us up on Skype. Why not?
Please don't. No, please don't. Not yet. We'll give it out later. We'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out later. We got some work on Skype coming up for you guys too. Thank you for listening. Jason, thanks for coming back.
Anytime.
Jake, we'll catch you next week.
Sounds good to me.
All right.
Good
See you
night,
later, guys. Bye.
I think somewhere psychologically I didn't want to feel responsible in any way for this horrible crime, but now I've come to a place where I know that my bad choices and my bad decisions contributed to what happened and contributed to Gregg's death.